Okay, so we are fortunate to have some really great panelists with us today who have a lot of experience with technology in schools. They each have a unique perspective on technology in the classroom, and I've asked them to participate here because they bring a good, distinct point of view. So hopefully we'll have some varying opinions, and we'll get a nice broad range of ideas to help you out. So let me introduce our first panelist. Sean Straight. Sean does some amazing things with technology in the classroom. That's why I've asked him to be here. Sean, you mind taking a minute and tell us a little something about yourself?
Okay. Currently I teach in Pierce High School in Richland ISD, which is a suburb of Dallas. I've been doing technology since, 98, 99, in the early days. Currently I'm all technology. In the beginning I was technology and art, so the last several years I've been exclusively technology, and now I'm currently the technology department head at my school. So that's about it for me.
All right, thank you. Our next panelist is Dwayne Dixon. Dwayne has worked with technology for many years, not just in the classroom, but he was also in IT, and he's worked at the district level. Dwayne, can you take a second and tell us a little bit about you?
Just mainly spent 10 years in tech support and teaching web design for the Performing and Visual Arts High School here in Houston ISD, and then working with you, Daniel, on the TEKS. So, yeah, that'll about do it.
Short but sweet.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also joining us is Bridget Robinson. Bridget has extensive experience working in technology as well. So Bridget, do you mind taking just a second and telling us a little bit of something about you, please?
I've been in technology for the last 6-7 years at my school district, working with at the district level and the campus level, trying to train teachers so that they can make learning fun and engaging and interactive, so that the lessons that are going on are engaging, and students can actually learn the material. And we're actually going through a one-to-one trying to deploy that at our district currently. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today that we've been looking at in our district.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you. I want to say to all of our panelists, thank you for being here. I'm really grateful that you were able to join us today. As I said before, my name is Daniel Kylan. I've worked with technology pretty much my entire career, all 15 plus years that I've been teaching. I worked on the committee that developed the test for teacher certification in technology here in Texas, and I did in fact get to work alongside Dwayne developing the new web courses that we're now teaching here. And for the past 12 years, I've been the Technology Applications Department Chair here at Hastings High School in Alief, and I'm very happy to be your moderator for today's discussion. Let's take a quick second. I want to have a look at what we're going to try and accomplish today before we end our time. We're going to look and try to get a quick definition of the kinds of technology that we're talking about and we're going to be interested in. We're going to see if we can identify some hardware and maybe some software that are going to be the most useful in the class and for students to be exposed to so that they can be successful when they leave us. We're going to try and talk about some technologies that are maybe becoming a little obsolete and perhaps should be avoided when we're looking to make our technology purchases. And we'll get some suggestions for our panel about technologies that are coming down the line in the future that will have an impact on our classrooms. So hopefully when you leave today, you'll have some new ideas, maybe some new perspectives on technology that perhaps you haven't considered before now. And as I said, when we get to the end of the day, we'll be looking to answer some of your questions. So let's start with a quick definition of the kind of technology we're going to focus on today. Mainly we're going to be talking about hardware and software that directly impacts student learning in the classroom, such as computers, whiteboards, and of course the ever popular mobile devices, smartphones, iPads, that sort of thing. We're going to steer clear, hopefully, of all of the infrastructure type things, servers and that kind of thing, and try to focus on talking about tech that's going to be used directly in the classroom with the students. And speaking of those mobile devices, just to give you an idea of how widespread their use has become, what we're seeing is about half of the students are using them as their primary way to access the internet. So we're seeing that mobile devices really are replacing computers for that purpose. So we need to address that in the classroom. In a recent survey, 60% of students said they would love to use their mobile devices during class, but only 52% of administrators, but 52% of administrators said they thought that was a bad idea. So clearly we're seeing some differences between what the students would like to do in the classroom and what administrators would like to see happen in the classroom. All schools now are internet connected, but what we saw last year was school districts on average spending about 2% of their overall budget on technology. And a large percent of that money went to supporting the school's technology infrastructure that was already in place, cables, servers, upgrading things that were already purchased. So while we are seeing schools still dedicating money to technology, what we're actually seeing is a decrease in the amount of money that's being spent in the classroom itself on technology directly related to the students. What we haven't seen enough of, and what I hope we do see more of in the future, is technology that is replacing some of the old ways that things have been done. I have a quick example for you up here on this slide. One study shows that if we switch to digital textbooks away from print textbooks, we could see an average savings of $250 per student, which is just about a large enough savings to pay for the electronic device to read that digital book itself. And that's 1 year savings. So potentially we're talking about millions of dollars that could be spent in a variety of ways if we use our technology differently, and hopefully we can get some discussion about that going during today's presentation. So let's take a look at the first topic I want to have our panelists comment on, and that is if we consider all the possible technology purchases out there. I'm curious what you see as the one piece of technology that can have a positive impact on students and that you would recommend schools invest in. I want to hear from all three of you. So, Dwayne, let's start with you. Can we get your opinion on this?
One piece of technology. Wow, that's a tough question. I'm trying to think in terms of cost and feasibility based on scale and size. Is there no limitations here, right?
What one thing? If you could just pick one thing, what would it be?
Really and truly, some type of smart whiteboard device, not necessarily a smart board, but an interactive whiteboard device of some type that would be mimicking what the children are already used to on their phones and their tablets.
Okay. Let me turn to Bridget. Bridget, what do you think?
I would say that you need to start going to one-to-one devices, and when I say one-to-one device, I'm not being, I think Apple is really great with the iPad and the iPad minis that are coming out, but just a device that the students can have in their hand, and I think that's the thing that's going to really disrupt the education. I think other things like whiteboards or student learning, the remotes, student response systems, to me, those aren't necessarily disruptive, and honestly, it's really going to depend on how it's put in the hands of the teachers. But if I could, the perfect world is going one-to-one devices with the students.
Okay, thank you. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, the one-to-one device is something I can see. What I see in my schools is consistency, and having a consistent device that works in all different classrooms with different teachers. So something like the iPad or netbooks, that you have a class setup, everybody has the same device, so that when they go from one class to another, they're familiar with the device. They don't have one in social studies, a different device in an English class. You get that's one consistent device, whether it be a netbook that they can have all their textbooks on, but then also that doing something they can interact with the teacher with, as a class. But also be able to take home with them. But everybody, the main thing for me is consistency, because I see different devices. I see some classes that have phones, Some students use iPads, some use students' classes were now are using their netbooks and or laptops, and there's no consistency. So to me, it's just one. If there were one mobile device they could use in all classes, I'm not really sure what that would be, though.
Yeah, that consistency is a good thing. One of the things I think we need to be careful of when we're thinking about technology purchases, it's the teacher training, so that we're sure that everybody knows everything, what everything can do, and you don't have one teacher in one classroom doing remarkable, amazing things with it, and the teacher next door just hasn't had the training to know what to do with it. So thank you, everybody. That's going to lead us into our next topic, which is technology inevitably becomes outdated. So let's talk about what technology choices you guys feel just really aren't worth buying. What should we avoid? What are some technologies that perhaps have outlived their usefulness, or things that schools are still buying that maybe they should avoid, in your opinion? Bridget, let's start with you on this one.
I think Microsoft Office, Microsoft products, because Google does everything for free. As far as software, if you're talking hardware, I would say probably the document cameras. Although the document cameras can capture a lot of things, you can also do that on like iPads or other types of devices instead of using that.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things we're going to look at a little later is the number of students that actually have smartphones, and with the prevalence of smartphones, document cameras really, I would say pretty much most cameras really have probably outlived their usefulness. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, the document camera is one of mine too. That I see a lot of that, especially working in more of the art side of things. The software, though, the Microsoft, that we've tried issues like that. We've tried things with using a lot of Google Docs and things online, and it's accessibility though that comes up with that. So it was hard for me to kind of answer this question. Is hardware, software that no longer useful, because I'm in a pretty technology savvy, and we're really tech useful in my district. So I haven't really found a lot that we've outgrown. My district has pretty much just stayed pretty current with everything, which I'm very fortunate to have. So this is a difficult question for me.
Yeah, that is fortunate.
Yeah.
Dwayne, what do you
nice
think?
Problem,
yeah. Dwayne?
Well, we're not in the same boat here in Houston. Sorry. For some people, an overhead projector is considered technology. That probably would need to get hold of that. Yeah. Document cameras, not so sure about, because there's a lot of good uses for those, especially if we still have books. Now, if we go away from books and go to e-readers, then definitely document cameras are been there, done that kind of thing. For me, if we're going to really go into the tablet era, we need to stop spending thousands of dollars on laptops and move on to buying thousands of dollars of tablets, because some of them cost as much as a laptop, but yet I'm looking at the upkeep and the infrastructure and everything. But kids are used to tablets. They're used to that touch interface. They've grown up with it, and they're very accustomed to it. And sometimes the keyboard interface that you and all of us grew up with is not necessarily conducive to them as well. So if we had to, that would be hardware. Software to do away with, well, sorry, we're a Microsoft shop over here, so we can't get rid of Office. That ain't going to happen, no matter how much I complain.
We are as well.
The software, really, I don't know, because a lot of it is very useful, and it all depends upon the level of the school and where they're at in their own technology genesis, if you will. Because each school, we're a very decentralized district, and each school is on their own as to what they do. And so some schools are very technologically savvy, and some of them are not. So it's kind of a hard choice to say what software should we do away with, given the situation I'm in.
Okay. Well, talking about whiteboards, that's going to move us right into the next topic. What I want to do is get your opinion on the technology you see here. we're going to start out with whiteboards. I'm going to go ahead and give my opinion on this. I personally have never really been wowed by whiteboards. To me, there's things, there are really not many things you can do with them that you can't do with other technology. I mean, I know there are a lot of teachers who have them, and I know a lot of teachers who have them in their room where they just sit unused for various reasons. I can do pretty much the same thing a whiteboard can do with an overhead projector and a presenter tablet, such as an Elmo or Wisdom tablet, that I can do with a whiteboard. So Dwayne told us what he thought about whiteboards. Sean, Bridget, what do you guys think about them?
I guess I'm old school. Yeah. Go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I guess I'm just old school, and I still use mine quite a bit. I also like it because, sometimes if I'm not in the room immediately, or if at the end of class, if I'm getting technology, I'm getting something ready for my next class, I can have something up on the whiteboard, assignments, vocabulary, all kinds. I mean, I constantly use mine. I mean, it's not, I use it less and less now, but it is nice to have. I mean, I guess I could, do some other ways of doing it, but just to have that there, it's so quick and it's so easy for me to change it and update it and put assignments that kids can walk by, that even in between classes they come in when I'm not in the, actually in there, they can get information off of it. So I still think they're relevant.
And I'm going to go to saying that it's not relevant, because you can present material without having it on a whiteboard, and that can be done, like Daniel said, with tablets, pads, any kind of a device like that. You're just presenting material. And I wanted to bring out that the single most important factor, that there is in student learning is the teacher. And so it really depends on how the teacher uses that device. And it's not having the device in the teacher's hands, it's having it in the student's hands. So if a teacher is creating interactive lessons and having students come up and touch the whiteboard and move it around, manipulate that way, then that's extremely engaging. But if it's just being used as another way of writing on the board, something that could be written on the board or presented with an Elmo, then it's a waste of technology.
I agree. We mentioned presentation tablets. Let's talk about that one next. For me, I'm very happy with my tablet. I find it very functional. What do you guys think? Dwayne? Dwayne still with us? Well, Bridget?
I'll jump in and say that the tablet, there's so many things that you can do with a tablet and an iPad, and those are totally different things. A tablet meaning that you control basically a whiteboard from a tablet instead of having to write and be restricted to that board. You can walk around with a tablet. Still, though, is going to have the same effect as a whiteboard if it's just in the teacher's hands. Going to an iPad, it's going to also be the same thing, although iPads have different apps and stuff that you can use on them as well. It's how the device is used is what I'm going to stick with.
Sean?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. It's how it's used. We've had some luck with using them with students, having like a class set of them and being able to having them all linked together. We can, and even in small groups, really versatile. It's just the biggest problem we have is getting teachers used to that, getting teachers trained on, okay, this is what you can do with it. I mean, they're great, but it comes down to how are you going to use it. I think in time, as we get more and more used to this and we start incorporating more of it, that they're going to be really, really relevant in the future.
Dwayne, are you back with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that. I've got people in and out of the office, so I keep trying to mute it so I don't bother anybody. Presentation tablets, I've never really used one specifically, but the idea being is it's really a whiteboard replacement, right?
It can be used in that way, which is, I think, one of the most powerful ways that it can use, because it's way cheaper than a whiteboard, but it does have other functions. You can control your computer from a distance and other things like that. But yeah, kind of a whiteboard replacement is, to me, one of the big things.
That sounds like a nice, useful tool. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to any tool, and this is what I ask myself anytime I'm dealing with any tool whatsoever, is how is this going to really affect instruction? And if the presentation tablet is going to help the instruction of a class, then I'm by all means for it. It should be useful. But that's going to depend upon the delivery of the teacher and how the teacher actually does the delivery. Do I see them as valuable? Yes. Can I see them as being useful? Yes. But it all depends upon, again, the user and who's doing the using of it for the kids.
Yeah, I agree completely. And Elmos, the next thing on the list, I think falls into that exact same category. I know teachers who, when we bought Elmos, were jumping all over themselves trying to get one into their room, and now it sits pretty much unused. I have one in my room. I use it. I like it for what it does. It does a really good job. What do you guys think, Sean?
Yeah, I the exact same. When I thought Elmos, I thought the exact same thing. When we first got them, they were the hottest thing ever. Then that was kind of fun for a while, but then people stopped using them. They used other things, tablets or other methods of teaching. So there's a few people at my school that still use them a lot. Just depends on what you're teaching and your style of teaching, I guess. But I can kind of see them being phased out, though. It's kind of like the overhead projector, going that way.
Yeah.
I think that the Elmos did pretty much just take over the overhead projector, and you got rid of the projector, and then you were able to show the piece of paper and just project that way instead. However, I do have some teachers that use it quite effectively, and what they're doing is using we have actually Lumens and not Elmos, but use a Lumens and an interactive whiteboard at the same time, so they're able to show a paper, a worksheet, whatever math problem that they're working on, and then the students are able to, either with a tablet or by going up to the whiteboard, they're able to work out the problems, the math problems. But it comes down to how is the teacher using it. So any technology that you have is great, but it's also it depends on whose hands it's in.
Yeah, what we've seen too is the ability to hook the Elmos up to the computer, so we don't even have to print paper out at all, and then using the tablet to mark up whatever the document is right on screen. The next thing on the list, I'm going to go ahead and combine the next two, laptops and iPads, because I think what Dwayne said earlier was a point that I was going to make myself. There was a big push of late to get a laptop in every kid's hands. But to me, it just seems like a waste, because iPads or tablets is what they've grown up with. It's what they know. It's what most of them have. And it just makes a lot of sense to me to continue that sort of work with them using something that they already know. But I'm curious what you guys think about that. Sean?
I kind of have mixed feelings about them, because the classes I teach, I have some of my teachers that love the iPads and tablet type things, especially my social studies and English departments. But in my class, teaching animation and teaching video that I teach, having the versatility of a laptop is really, I couldn't teach animation or video on just an iPad, because I need a keyboard. And part of it is processor speed. If they can, or we're starting to use a lot more like Wacom tablets instead of mice and things. But if we can still have the versatility on an iPad that I have, and the processor speed that I have on a laptop, then yeah, I definitely like the convenience of the iPads or the netbooks, because just the size and the cost. But just depends on what you're teaching. There's some that iPads, like animation, video, I couldn't see teaching those classes with one of those. They're a great tool for me as a teacher. I love using them, but for students, they're not there yet.
Bridget, what do you think?
Our teachers are completely there with it. I have two campuses that I currently are my main focuses. One of them has labs, and they have laptops available for them, and then the other one doesn't have hardly anything for students to use. And it's real sparse, and the difference in the creativity, the difference in the learning, it's just amazing. So I think that those things are almost vital in one form or the other, whether it's a laptop, a netbook, you know, an iPad, some kind of an interactive device for the student to use.
Dwayne, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say?
No problem. I was actually going to piggyback on what Sean had said. You know, I really agree that it totally depends upon what are you using it for. I mean, if you really are doing a video class, yeah, you can't be using a tablet if they're not powerful enough. But I think for the general populace, iPads and tablets and e-readers would be great, but for your more specialized classes, such as your art classes or your music classes or your video classes, that you're going to need something that's more powerful and portable, such as a laptop workstation, or even getting into a desktop at some point. I know people keep saying desktops are going to die, but if you deal with video animation, even a desktop still trumps a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things I teach is 3D animation, and the desktop is definitely the way to go for those right now. Let's go ahead and throw smartphones into the mix. I have some teachers here at my school who are using them as instructional tools. The kids are using them to write papers that they send to the teacher via email or text. So what I'd like to get from you guys is maybe a comparison or a look at how do smartphones really play into it. My opinion is that smartphones are great, but they're very limited. You know, iPads just are so much more portable, or I'm sorry, so much more useful, such a bigger screen. You're able to really take notes on them. And for me, the big reason is, of course, we just don't have the control over smartphones that we need to. The kids are connecting using their own network. And if we're giving them iPads or laptops, then we have the ability to limit their internet access and to apply a filter to meet that Children's Internet Protection Act requirement. So what do you guys think about smartphones? Anybody?
No doubt it puts the technology into the hands of the students, and it can be very engaging for students. I have teachers that are using them all over the place, from using them to scan QR codes and look for answers for their worksheets, to check homework. And those kids are engaged. They're out of their seat. They're excited about learning. And to me, when you get them excited about learning, that's wonderful. You bring up very valid points that are, you know, the things that are detrimental to it when you have students that are going on places that they shouldn't be, and we don't have any control over that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The giving the students, having that access. We just recently, I guess, remember behind some districts, but last year we started allowing kids to use phones in the hall and using them more in the classroom. And it's one of the things we're having to teach them is responsibility. Yes, they're going to have that access. They're going to have it, you know, whether or not they're on iPad. And we're having to teach classes on, you know, etiquette. When is it okay to use it? When it's not okay to use it? Our biggest problem is, because I have a very diverse school, a lot of my kids will have some really nice high-end phones. Some kids don't have any phones, so it's kind of hard to get. We've had classes that the teachers do a lot of interactive things in class, but then you get the 2 or 3 kids in class that just don't have a phone, or they've got a really inexpensive one, and it's hard finding that balance of usefulness for it, you know, because we want to have the same opportunity for everybody. So we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree. We've entertained BYOD for a little while, but the big equity issue is the reason why we haven't done it yet. I do know smartphones. Most of I'm going to kind of segue into your student response systems, but most of those student response systems now have apps you can put on phones and use them.
That's exactly my point.
I mean, at some point, why are the clickers necessary? You've got phones that do it. But there's a whole slew of problems with BYOD, and there's a whole slew of nice, beautiful solutions, too. You create sort of chaos as far as your control of your technological systems within the district by doing it, but yet you open it up to a lot more kids to be able to be more interactive with their own technology because they can afford it a lot more readily than the school district can. but then you lose the standardization. And at some point, you bring in that inequality, and then when is that inequality so great that is it a detriment to what you're doing, or is it a benefit?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think mobile devices are definitely here to stay, but trying to keep them out of school is kind of like trying to get the genie back in the bottle. It's really kind of a pointless endeavor after a while. That did lead me right into student response system. I was going to say the same thing Dwayne said. It's difficult for me to kind of see the use for them when there are other ways to kind of do what they do. So Bridget or Sean, would you guys like to defend student response systems?
We have tons of them on our campus. Some of them are sitting not being utilized because one particular set, doesn't have has not been very consistent with the software being able to work and have it working. The other one, on the other hand, is absolutely phenomenal, and the data that the teachers get from that is absolutely incredible. I have math teachers that are using the student response systems along with their pads. They have instruction units, and they're posing questions immediately to the students, and finding out, does the student truly know how to work the problem out, and getting instant feedback. So I mean, it's pretty good. Yes, there's other things that you could use for it, but if you have them on campus or you can get them cheaply, then I think it's a really good way to measure what a student is learning at that time.
Sean?
Yeah, I agree with that. We have the exact same issue. We first started using some of them. The reliability really wasn't there. Part of the class would work, and then part of the class some of the students weren't. Once they do, when they do work, they're fantastic. You get that immediate response. You get really, the students really seem to like that, to be able to see the answer, see it quickly, see what they did. It really speeds up the class time, which is critically important. But it's like everything else in technology. If it works, it's great. When it doesn't, it's a nightmare.
Right.
It's just
I can't tell you how much time I've also spent troubleshooting student response systems trying to get them to work.
Yep.
We've all been there. Yeah.
Yep. And I think it's the same for us. It's beautiful when they work. It really does help your shy kids because they don't have to get up in front of the board. It makes them feel better. But at some point, if the technology is not going to work, when does it become
pointless?
When do you cut your losses?
Right.
Okay, I want to move on to software. We already heard some of your opinions of Microsoft's offerings out there, but I want to get sort of your opinion of classroom monitoring software. I have some teachers that absolutely cannot live without it, and I have other teachers who just do not see the point. If you're, their opinion is if you're walking around and actively monitoring, it really shouldn't be necessary. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any experience with classroom monitoring software?
When we used it, and this is Dwayne, we loved it. Loved the ability to be able to not only monitor what's going on, but if you got, I was teaching web design, so if you got a kid that just created something really awesome, you could show it on everybody's screen real quickly. So there's some nice benefits, and there's also those times when you've got somebody that is just doing what they're not supposed to be doing and you automatically shut it down. It kind of gets their attention. You only got to do it about once or twice, and then everybody else starts kind of behaving when they need to.
And they find out really quickly it's kind of pointless to mess around like that.
I absolutely love it. Because it also depends on the lab setup. Some of the labs we have, I can be in the middle of the room and I can see every single computer and I can actively monitor everybody. But other ones, just depending on the way the computers are set up, it's hard to get around a room and see what everybody's doing. And they're going to do that. They're going to sneak off to a site, or they're going to sneak up to a program and try and get away with it. But like you said, if you can, let them know that, hey, you're being watched the whole time, you're being monitored. It just takes one or two exams, and they just kind of, it's okay. Let's not do it. Let's move on. So I I absolutely love mine. My teachers, most of my teachers, I've never had anybody say they don't want it installed in the room.
Yeah, we have arguments over, is it going to be installed, you know, when are you going to get it? We did a re-image, and at some point when we went to grade 7, couldn't get it to work, and they were at a loss. What do we do? Get up and walk around the room. See, I can live without it? Of course you can. However, it does make life a lot easier, and it does give you that, you know, where every student is. Of course, kids can get around it, you know. There's ways that they can get around it, so there is a use.
I love mine as well, and for me, I think the of course, being able to monitor what they're doing and controlling where they're going. But what I love about it also is that I can send, you know, I can show a video and send it to their monitors straight from my machine, and I can send out tests and quizzes straight from my machine and have the software grade it for me. So I'm not worried about Scantrons or anything anymore. I haven't used a Scantron in 10 years. So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. The dog is ready to move on.
Yes. Sorry. That would be me.
What I'd like to touch on is how do we ensure that the technology that we purchase is put to good use? How do we make sure students and teachers are actually using the technology that we spent so much money on? Bridget, let's start with you. What do you think?
Oh, you know my answer is going to be professional development, because that's what I do. However, I would like to say that before you get to the professional development stage, I believe that you need to do a lot of research to make sure that the device or the technology that you're purchasing is the right technology for what you're wanting to do. And not just jumping on the bandwagon just because, oh, this is the latest thing out, looking at, you know, what do you actually need, and is this going to fulfill that? And then after the fact, of course, professional development, training, and then follow-up trainings. You just got to have that support there.
Yeah, actually, looking at making sure you're buying the right device. We're going to talk about that a couple of slides from now. But let me go ahead and say this now, that I think what Bridget said was really important. Not just professional training, but continual professional training. It cannot be a one-time thing. It has to be continual. We've seen multiple studies that show just throwing technology at something doesn't fix it. In fact, Mark Warschauer, one of the most famous things he said was technology just will not make a bad school good. In fact, it makes a bad school worse, because you've still got a bad school, and now you've wasted all that money on technology that's not being used. So yeah, professional development is huge. Dwayne, what do you think?
Well, I already agree with the two of you, and you said most of everything I was going to say, so not a whole lot left for me to say. That's okay. It just means we're all thinking about the same thing. My biggest, and I agree with you, my biggest pet peeve is you come in, you do one professional development, and you think everybody's going to be okay, and there's no follow-up.
Right.
In order for it to work, you've got to do follow-up, because the only way that you're going to change them is you're not changing the curriculum, you're just changing how they deliver the curriculum. Yeah. And you've got to constantly work with them, because we're all creatures of habit. Whenever we get something and we're comfortable with it, we want to stay with that. We don't want to move on to something new that's foreign. And so the key really is their professional development, but not just once or twice, but I mean a continual follow-up. Someone on campus that constantly has to work with the teachers. It's kind of like what the state already had in place with the MTT program, but it just kind of flopped because they didn't put the funding behind it.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, it's I definitely need the training. Well, my biggest problem with those is having people like myself that's a veteran teacher that uses a lot of technology, and then you get people that have never used it or are hesitant, and getting training that fits both needs. I mean, I find myself in a lot of workshops that they're great for beginners, but for the advanced teachers, there's no real growth for us. So it's finding that balance between, you know, okay, yeah, you can do some technology with new teachers and follow up on those, but what about the veterans, those of us that have been teaching for a long time? And how do we grow and become better and get used to technology? Because I don't want to sit through another Word, PowerPoint, Excel, spreadsheet class, but You know, it's like, yeah, also, but in my district also it's accountability. It's really hard. Here's your technology. They just throw technology at us. They throw money at us. And it's like, okay, who's following up? There's no, the administration has to come through and check on it. But a lot of times they have no idea what it is that we do. We speak a foreign language as far as administrators are concerned, so they don't really, yeah, I've got this equipment, but it's never been used because no one's ever asked me if I use it or not. So accountability is a big thing in my district.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back onto the teacher too. A lot of teachers are happy to get a piece of technology, and you know, whether they use it or not, don't want to let it go. Part of that's the culture. You need to have a culture where a teacher feels comfortable saying, you know, I really don't know how to use this, or I don't want to use this. Give me something else maybe, or you know, at least give me some training on how to use it.
Right. And follow up like we talked about before.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our next topic.
Having a coach too to coach you through that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, and this is just a little mention from me. We've got extremely dark clouds at where I'm at, so if I cut out, it means we had a power failure.
Well, we'll try to get through this quickly. The U.S. Department of Labor says 65% of students in school today are going to end up working in a job that actually has not even been invented yet. So I'm curious, you guys, to hear from you guys, is what technology do you feel our students absolutely, positively need to be familiar with and have a grasp on before they leave? Is there one thing you can put your finger on that kids really need to know before we send them out into the real world? Dwayne, let's start with you, so in case you lose power.
For me, it's not really one device. It goes back to just understanding technology and how technology itself works in a general manner. Therefore, they can take that and adapt it to whatever they need it to be whenever that new invented job happens. So I'm looking more for a general understanding than I am a specific piece of hardware.
Just being technically literate.
Yes, and be able to adapt.
Sean, what do you think?
I guess on this, to me, it's, I'm telling you how to say it right. Is they need to be able to the technology, because it's constantly changing, they need to be able to know how to problem solve. You know, not just which button to push. I mean, you can train a monkey to push buttons, but if a button doesn't work or if they need something else, how do you problem solve with technology? How do you teach these problem-solving skills? Because technology is going to constantly be changing. I mean, as we make things easier, and, you know, just click on this or put this filter on that, it's the problem-solving skills that I'm seeing being, because the technology is taking over so much. So I don't know if there's a one technology experience. It's how to use it and how to understand, or just to problem solve with it. That's my biggest issue.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Bridget? Bridget? Did we lose Bridget? What, maybe the weather got her? Well, let's go ahead and just jump into the last topic that I got for us today, because it's going to be looking into the future. So I'm curious what you guys see coming down the line as being technology that's really going to have an impact on students and learning in the future. If you look at this slide, I got a couple of technologies, kind of coined as future technologies. Up there, that left picture, that's actually a picture of flexible electronic paper that can be reused to display different images. Next to that, we see a tablet that you can actually fold and mold into pretty much any shape. Next to that is a completely wireless, completely cloud-based classroom, and on top of that, we see a wireless digital keyboard that's being projected by that little tiny projector there. So I'm curious if you guys can give me maybe some technology you see coming down the line that you see will really have an impact on the classroom in the future. Sean?
To me, it's just mobility. Like we just got some cameras that have projectors on them, so I had some coaches using them, and they could, just having them as devices get smaller and more mobile and more, where you get, you don't really need 10 different devices. You just need one, one device. I think as we get into that one single device, it will do everything. I mean, I've got cameras now, or even phones that it becomes your computer. your database, everything, and then a projector on also, so you can create something and project it and teach from one device. I think as we get, so looking at some of your devices, just they're getting smaller and there's more devices all in one. I think that's going to be the biggest change, is we're just going to become one. You know, your iPad does everything. You can shoot movies on it, you can edit it, it has a projector on it. The single device item, I think, is what's going to be the one big thing.
Yeah, I agree. Dwayne?
I kind of piggyback on that, the one device, but I also look at the speech-to-text technology. Sorry, that wasn't very clear. Speech-to-text technology. But the ability to, really, to write a novel without having to type. You're not limited to how fast your fingers can get the letters into the computer. You're limited by your own thought. And I already use that quite a bit on my phone for doing text messages, doing email compositions, doing navigation and everything, and it's so much easier. You just put a headset on and talk into the computer, and it answers all your emails. So I think that is actually a pretty big game changer. It just hasn't hit the saturation point yet to really make a big hit on people for them to use it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Bridget, are you back with us?
I'm back. I think that when students get one-to-one devices in their hands, that when that's truly used in an engaging way, that's going to be a game changer and really disrupt the education environment, because it's going to begin bringing the technology, it's going to begin bringing the content to the students in the manner that they need, and it's going to meet each individual student's needs. So I think just getting the one-to-one devices, I think learning management systems is also changing when they're used properly.
All right, thank you. Before we go on to answering some of the attendee questions, I want to take a quick look at, I think, some things that we need to, teachers and administrators, we need to ask ourselves before we go ahead and spend money on that piece of technology. Now, I realize this is a lot of stuff to read on this list, and we're not going to go over everything, because a lot of the stuff on this list we already mentioned during our time today. But if you want a copy of this list, drop me an email. I'll be giving you my email address here in just a second. Drop me an email, and I'll be happy to send it to you. There are some important things on here that I did want to talk about, like number 2, which is making sure that the technology actually serves to increase student performance and is really not just a toy for the teacher or the students to play with. I think one of the things we always want to do, Dwayne mentioned it, we always want to make sure that whatever the technology is, we always want to be sure that it's increasing student performance, and it's not just another way of doing something, but is in fact a better way to do it. Number 4 to me is really important too. We already talked about teacher training a lot. I think a lot of that goes back to the teachers having to realize that sometimes you can bite off more than you can chew, and be willing. You got to be willing to take whatever training is needed to make that piece of technology work. Going hand in hand with that is number 7, which says you just have to have a complete understanding of what the device can do. I think a lot of times overblown expectations mean you just have a device that gets left on the table and it sits unused, and that's money that could be spent some other way. So those are just some suggestions of things to keep in mind before you make that purchase. And again, if you want a copy of this, just let me know. So with the time we got left, I want to hit, we got just enough time to hit a couple of things, a couple of the other questions. I want to have a quick look at what do we do about an inability to give every student a device. There are certainly school districts that can afford to give every student a device and go one-to-one, but there are large numbers that just can't do it. How do we handle that lack of devices for every student? Bridget, let's start with you. Did we lose Bridget again?
I think that you may try doing. I think you may try doing a multitude of things where you're using devices like either the smaller iPads or Chromebooks or something that have a lower cost, and yet you can put more of those in the students' hands. And then for the ones that you can't, I think making it a mandate, hey, bring your own device. But the districts have to be ready for that, and the networks have to be ready for that as well. So you're talking about, for some people, a long time in the future, and we're just getting ready for that in our district. And they keep asking us, are we ready? Are we ready? And we had this conversation 6 months ago, and we were like, oh, we're not sure. So there's a lot of things that have to be done before that.
Yeah, a definite cost-cutting measure is using those devices that the kids have on them every day anyway. Sean, what do you think?
We've run into that. One of our cost things was running bond elections, but paying for everything was the biggest thing. So we do a lot of class sets. Like we have class sets of, like as a department, your department orders a class set of iPads instead of each teacher getting a set. And it's kind of like working in the library. You have to, you get to check it out. Then it's just a matter of scheduling and planning your lessons around that. Like we've got a limited number of iPads. We've got a limited number of laptops. It comes down to scheduling. Yeah, you can pull your resources and say, okay, let's buy, this department gets 2 class sets or this department gets 1. But you have to look at your needs and who's going to use them. We did this with the art department versus our English department, and who would actually use these devices realistically. So that's when you're doing that, you've got to really look at, is it going to be used or not?
Yeah, you have to be certain that it's actually going to be used, and you don't want it just because it's a cool thing to have.
Yeah.
Dwayne?
Well, since we're so big, doing one-to-one is next to impossible just due to the cost. 200,000 students or more, and trying to get a device into each and every one of their hands, plus every staff member, even at the mini iPad price, that's half our operating budget for 1 year. And then you couple upon top of that, what are you going to do in 3 to 4 years when you need to replace those devices? Sure, you got the grant to get them the first time around, but are you going to be able to get another grant to replace them? One-to-one would
Very
be
valid.
great.
Yeah, very valid. Yeah.
One-to-one would be a very great utopian idea for a district our size, but the best thing that we've been able to do is basically kind of what Sean had said. We've got class sets, sets that are shared between classes, mobile carts, mobile iPad carts, and so forth, just trying to figure out a way to make it more accessible to everyone, but usable for each and every school in such a manner that each and every person in a school can use something at least once a week or once every couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's good. So they're getting at least some exposure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the greatest solution in the world, but we try to do what we can.
Okay, I want to try and get one more quick question in because I find this one to be really fascinating. What do you guys think about spending money on game systems, Xbox or Wii or things like that, for use in the classroom? Do you guys see any value in that? Anybody want to jump in?
Well, I'm going to jump in because I actually have some teachers that are utilizing that and utilizing it quite well. I don't know if every class needs that, but I think with students, you need to engage them and captivate them, and what games captivate them. That's kind of one of the things I was going to say is, what's the next generation of learning? I think it's games, and game-based learning.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sean or Dwayne?
I think it's valuable too. I mean, it's because it's something that the students are familiar with. They're so familiar with it, but it's like any other device. It's how it's used. You can take a game system and have to do some phenomenal things with it, and you can, it just depends on who's using it and how they use it. But yeah, I definitely see a value in it.
I totally agree. It's personally, would I use it in a classroom myself? No, because I know myself. But I also know that there are some teachers that could use it very responsibly, and that would be fine. Although I think that would take some convincing of the parents of the school to understand what's going on before actually doing it.
Yeah. Okay, well, it looks like we're just about out of time, so let me go ahead and wrap up for today. I want to take a quick second and give thanks to McGraw-Hill for sponsoring this and the other webinars that have been put on in the EdExchange series. and for hosting the EdXchange website. There's the web address right there for it. You can not only sign up for webinars on this website, but there are some great education-related blogs available as well. And you can even offer your services to host a webinar if you would like. So I want to go ahead and encourage anybody interested in conducting a webinar to go ahead and contact them and get that going. And visit the website often. They're always posting up new stuff, and it is absolutely free. I want to thank, or if you want to contact any of the panelists, there's my email. Go ahead and drop me a line, anything you want to know, and I'll pass it on to them, and we'll get a response back to you as quickly as we can. Now I want to say thanks to my panelists. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. Any attendees, thank you for showing up. And that's just about all the time we got. So you guys have a great week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Daniel.